What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I kind of want to try and answer the question, how is One Piece doing? How are the markets actually doing? I know we see a lot of cards going up in price, but in terms of where we are now compared to maybe 6 months ago, how different are things really? So the best way I'm going to go about trying to illustrate this to you guys, and I'm not very happy with how it turned out. I think it'll still get the point across, but I still don't think it was the best way I could have probably gone about it. I'm going to be taking data from my market spreadsheet. And by the way, like if you guys are in here, you have access to this, definitely feel free to download a copy yourself. And if you want to build graphs out from anything, like you're absolutely free to do that. I have no problems or issues, and feel free to share it with me as well if you feel the need. But what I did, and I'm going to show you a couple photos on my computer, and hopefully you guys can see this. If not, in post, I'm going to have to add the photos in on screen. But the first one is basically two graphs, I guess. This is going to be tracking OPO1 Romance Dawn Blue Bottoms all the way up to Royal Blood, and it's taking data from April 16th of this year all the way up to, I think the most recent update was just a couple weeks ago. And what you're looking at on screen, the top graph is showing you the total amount of boxes listed for all of these sets on eBay North America that you could buy below a 20% leg up. So what I do in my spreadsheet, if you guys aren't familiar, is we take TCG market price for all the booster boxes, we add 20% to that, and we want to look at how many boxes on eBay are listed basically below that price. Because if you look at boxes above 20%, because there are a lot out there, those aren't really boxes and listings that are going to be selling. We really want to look at boxes that are in a range that they're more than likely going to sell to someone, whether they do buy the cheapest box, or maybe if someone has a promoted listing, they pay for one of the more expensive ones. So that's kind of the gist of why we use 20%. And then we're just looking at how many boxes sell on a 7-day average. It's now up to a 28-day average because I think on update 13, so if you guys look at this down here, this is when we actually changed over from weekly updates to doing just one monthly update. I am actually considering moving it back to weekly just because I tweaked some things around. I think it will be feasible to do. I'd probably have to change the day of the week, but still I am contemplating doing that again. Either way, basically every data point up to number 13 is going to be a weekly result. And then after that, the last few, we're looking at monthly ones. But this is total amount of boxes listed for all the sets from Romance Dawn Blue Bottoms up to Royal Blood on eBay North America. And you can see that during the summer update, this would probably be like late June, I think at this point, early July, we had a lot of supply coming to market. We're up to almost 1,200 boxes for all of those sets. And since then, since late July, we've actually seen a reduction in the amount of boxes listed. And last week, or last update we did, we were down to around 230 total boxes, below a 20% leg up for everything, again, from Romance Dawn Blue Bottoms up to Royal Blood. And that's kind of crazy considering that there was over 1,200 just a couple months prior to that. And down here on the second graph, because I feel like we should talk about this now, this is basically how many total boxes out of all of those sets we're moving basically every single day. Buy It Now North America. I will say though, this blue point right here, even though we're still weekly, this is when we added in auctions. So there were going to be lower averages before that, in theory. And after that point, I kind of expected there to be a slightly higher average comparatively. But what I didn't expect was for there to be a very large increase in price on a lot of these booster boxes during that same time period. And normally when booster boxes increase in price, you kind of expect that sales volume to go down just because there aren't going to be as many people willing to spend that money on the product. For example, something like Romance Dawn, I will show you guys the actual spreadsheet. Back in April, this was a $1,100, $1,200 booster box, the blue bottoms on TCG Player. You probably could have bought this in a Facebook group for $1,000, and we're now sitting around $3,000 on TCG Player based on the recent sales. So even though I expected there to be slightly higher averages in the amount of boxes moving on a monthly basis for One Piece after we added auctions, considering the price increase on a lot of the boxes, I think I'm fine that it's been fairly steady throughout like the entirety of this year. Now, the one thing I find really interesting is that the top sets tend to be the ones performing better, even the more expensive booster boxes, compared to some of the cheaper ones. For example, something like OP07, OP08, those have actually tended to fall off a little bit in terms of the amount of boxes moving over the past few months. But if you look at something here, this is a new graph on screen. This is going to be OP05, Awakening of the New Era. Up top, you can see the market price starting all the way back in April. We were around $225, $230. We got up to around $285. We had that restock at a lot of stores in the US. We came all the way back down to around $220. And since then, we've just been on basically a straight climb upwards towards $360 approximately. And you can see here, sales volume was fairly low pre-auctions. Again, this X here on update 9, that's when we added in auctions. Since then, it's been a lot higher, but it's also been relatively stable since the time we added in the auctions. And you can see over here, well, this would have been like 2.6 boxes every single day for that update. And the most recent update, I think we're at 2.75, while at the same time, the booster box has gone from around $255, $260, all the way up to around $360. So massive increase in price. Normally, when you see a large price increase like that, you would expect the sales volume to come down, but that really hasn't been the case. Obviously, we had 1 week here where it was about 4 boxes per day that were moving, but outside of that, the highest we've really seen is about 3.25. In the most recent update, we're at 2.6, 2.75 again. So it's been in that range, 2.5 to 3.5, which I think is really healthy. And when you look at a lot of the other strong sets, for example, Emperors in the New World, this has been fairly consistent in like the 1.5 to 2.5 boxes moving every single week. Romance Dawn, not as many of these boxes move. You're normally around that like 0.75 range. But that has also been fairly consistent. And I also think that's fine considering that the blue bottom's almost 3K and the white bottom, by the way, it's funny. We talked about this being an $800 booster box not too long ago. The most recent sales on TCG Player from today, we actually had 4 boxes move all at $850 USD. So basically halfway between 8 and 900 at this point. Now, there was also one more thing I wanted to show you guys because I know a lot of you are interested in the individual cards and graded cards, etc. So when we look at a lot of the top mangas, I do track this in the spreadsheet as well. And I just pulled a little bit of data into another spreadsheet just to show you guys. So hopefully this is a little bit better of a visual representation. You can see here the date of the update. And this is looking at the top 20 value of the manga cards. This is excluding PRBO1 reprint, so the Luffy Gear 5 from OPO5 is in there, but not the one as well from PRBO1. And about 5 months ago, we started doing this. It was around $17,270 USD for that top 20 value. And there's about 147 near mint copies moving on a monthly basis for all those cards combined. The next month, we actually dropped a little bit in terms of the top 20 value. And for the next couple months as well, it was in that 16.8, 16.9K range. And the near mint sales were basically identical, 174, 172, and 172. But something changed in between the first week of September and the first week of October. We moved all the way up to $18,400 in top 20 value. And there was 266 near mint manga cards that sold. And by the way, this is from TCG Player, this data, whereas the sales data for the booster boxes is from eBay. So I try and balance it out and get a little bit from every single source I can. And you can see the month after October, moving into early November, the 2nd was actually the day I did the update, we passed $20,000 in terms of top 20 value, and the near mint sales, you're at 191. So as this number goes up, we tend to see the total amount of sales come down. So this is to be expected, but this is still a lot higher than what it was back in September, August, and July, even though there's about a 15% higher total in the amount of dollars for those top 20 mangas. And this, by the way, I fully expect to go up. It's probably going to be closer to $30,000 the next time I do the update, depending on if there is sales data on TCG Player. You can see I am sorting high to low. I have OP13 in here. You can see the gold shank showing up around $1,900, but there's still no sales data for the red mangas like the Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. So once those get updated, I do think it will be closer to about 30,000. Also, fun fact about the shanks from OPO9, I've actually seen a couple people in Facebook groups here in Canada put up, I believe it was PSA 10 copies. It might have been a BGS 10 as well. And someone was asking 6,000 Canadian, which I think is approximately 4,500 USD for that graded 10 copy. I'm not sure if they're going to get that price for this card, but if people are getting somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 for this in a PSA 10 or a BGS 10, we're probably going to see the raw card stay around that 1,500 to 2,000 range, as ridiculous as that sounds. But that's all I really wanted to talk about in this video. Hopefully it made a little bit of sense to you guys. Basically, a lot of the top sets, even though they're going up 50 to 100% over the past 6 months, a lot of them are still doing about the same in terms of sales volume that they were doing back in April or May, which is a really good sign in my opinion. And we're also seeing that mimicked in a lot of the top cards where even though the values are going up, we're also seeing the amount of near mint sales stay the same or actually increase. But with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you're having a great day. Stay safe wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you in the next one.